Hey everyone, this is Alaska from Call Out Culture. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. And if you are enjoying the podcast and you feel inspired to start your own, let me tell you about the system that we use. It is called Anchor. Best things about Anchor, it's free. There's tools that allow you to create and record and edit your podcast right from your phone and your computer. You can even add a song from Spotify directly from into your episodes. The possibilities are endless of what you could create, whether it's like music analysis or your own radio show or something that the world's never heard before. I don't know what that is. You figure that out. Not my job, yours. Anchor is going to distribute the podcast for you so it'll be heard on Spotify, Apple, and all the other podcast tunes you can use. Like all you do is you upload your podcast and boom, it appears in the other feeds. You can also make money through advertisements like this, or you can also set up like your own sort of Patreon fan support thing. There's no minimum listenership, and everything you need to make your podcast is in one place. So if you want to do a podcast, you want to be like us here at Call Out Culture, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm and get started. Hey, Call Out Cultists, what's up? It's Alaska. We got a real cool episode this week. As you know, I'm a huge horror fan, and one of my favorite horror podcasts is the Halloweenies Podcast. I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to sit down with one of the hosts, Mr. Mike Vanderbilt, and we got into all matter of subjects this week. So not just horror, not really much rap, but just a lot of talk about cool music, cool movies, cool shit that's going on. We talked Chicago, we talked New York, we talked a whole bunch of fun shit. So sit back, enjoy, and without further ado, let's get into the podcast. Hey, Call Out Cultists. It's your friendly old man host Alaska here for a special episode. I'm joined today by a man whose voice I've come to know and hold dear through my many hours of listening to the Halloweenies podcast. Please welcome Mr. Mike Vanderbilt to the show.
Oh, that means the world to me. Thank you so much.
No problem,
always,
man.
When I was, starting podcasting, that was a concern of mine. Will people be able to tolerate my very distinctive voice?
I think the distinctive voice is something that really helps, sort of define the podcast, right? All the other guys just sound like sort of like indie rock guys. You're like, all right, I get it. You guys write for consequence of sound, but then there's that voice that comes through.
and louder than everybody else too.
Louder than, yeah.
I grew up a couple blocks away from a freight train. That's why I have to speak heard.
There you go. So if you wouldn't mind just sort of giving us like a quick elevator pitch of your history and maybe a little quick introduction to what the podcast is.
So, well, I've been kind of what do I say, kicking around like the writing world and the creative world. Well, most of my adult life, I've played in rock and roll bands. I had a couple podcasts a couple years ago that I started with some friends, which, like most podcasts, the pitch, it was called Drinks on Monday. And the pitch was me and my friends drinking in a kitchen and talking about stuff. Mm-hmm. And, it did fine for what it was. I never really saw anything taken off. And, I freelanced at the AV Club, and I was an assistant editor at Daily Grindhouse. And I tried my hand at movie criticism and music criticism. And I was always trying to do something, and as being a bartender, it allowed me the hours to do that. And nothing was ever clicking. And then the Halloweenies podcast, when Halloweenies podcast premiered on Concept Got to Sound, I was already friendly enough with Mike Rothman and Justin Gerber and Matt Gerber and Dan Caffrey. But I remember listening, I was going to get a haircut and I was listening to that first episode of Halloweenies, seething because I wasn't asked to be a part of it. Not that I was like that friendly with them or anything like that, but I have a lot of stuff to say about Halloweenies. And then, they ran through that season. They got to Elm Street. They said, hey, you want to come in and sit in on a couple? And I'm like, yeah. And they give me 5 and 6. Like, man, wow. Fuck you guys. Come on. I like 5. I think the reason was like, I could actually say things I like about 5 and 6, but you couldn't give me 3, even 2. Come on, man. And then I was, I had done well on those shows, and I was surprised. They asked me, do you want to come on for Friday the 13th? At the the start of 2020, and I thought it was going to be a temporary gig, but they said, yeah, well, you're going to stick around afterwards, right? Sure. And I'm so glad they asked me back, only because, I mean, it's a cliche to say at this point, be talking about 2020 and the pandemic and everything, but I don't want to sound too sanctimonious, but being part of Halloweenies like really helped me get through that. Because if I didn't have something to look forward to, something to research, something to work on that I knew people were going to listen to every month, I would have gone nutty sitting in this house all by myself.
Oh, I could imagine. I mean, honestly, like, you know, Halloweenies was something that helped me get through. Like every morning, you know, I caught on to you guys late because
yeah, that's a good question for you. How did you find out about the Halloweenies?
So I kind of came to you through, I guess, Gorley and Rust. Are you familiar with their podcast?
Is that the name of the podcast?
Yeah, they do something similar where they go through like a series. So the first one was like in Myers We Trust with Gorley and Rust. And then it was like,
I'm not familiar with them, but I definitely appreciate their artwork that they have.
Yeah, so they're two comedians. Like one guy's Matt Gorley, who I'm not super familiar with, but Paul Rust. I don't know if you ever saw the TV show, the Netflix show Love.
I'm familiar with it. It's based in Chicago.
Yeah, no, I thought it was LA.
I thought maybe I'm confusing that with another one.
Oh well, he created the show and he's like the star in the show. It's
yeah,
like
I'm thinking of another one. I'm thinking of the Joe Swanberg one. I got those.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so I knew him from that, but at the start of the pandemic, I have at the time she was 10, and she was dying to watch horror movies.
That's a good. I mean, I think that's a fair age of getting. I got into them a little bit younger than that, but
same.
10. I mean, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I had to convince my wife, but we started watching. I think we started watching Halloween. Actually, it was the one we started watching. So I just started like looking for other podcasts like that, and I came across you guys. And so I would start listening, just to have like cool little facts that I could always tell her about the movies as we're watching them and going through. And we went through all the series. Like we went through.
So the daughter listened to Halloweenies with you?
She didn't listen to. She's like really
it can get a little sophomoric on there.
Yeah, well, she's 10, so she doesn't have that long form attention span yet.
Oh,
I think.
Sure, and not for a 3-hour podcast, right?
Yeah. So we've a couple times like listened. I think we listened to a couple of the Scream episodes in the car, but she kind of tunes out after a little while.
Yeah.
So, but that's kind of how I found you. I was just like I was looking for something similar to like the Voorhees and Rust, where it was just like sitting and listening to friends talk about horror movies, because I had that when I was growing up. And then I had a period where I kind of stopped watching horror movies, and then I came back to them, and I didn't have anybody to talk to them about. So it was nice to hear people talk to them about it like that.
For as much as I'm kind of known for liking horror movies, I did go through a stretch in the 2000s where I missed a lot of the new stuff because I just wasn't interested in it anymore.
Same.
Didn't mean I wasn't like, that was the era of when Netflix still had discs. So I was still going back and watching stuff that I had missed and stuff that I always loved. But when like the J-horror movement was just something that kind of went over my head, and I never really got into it.
Yeah, that was like The Ring and stuff like that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And same thing. I watched one or two, and I was like, meh.
Yeah.
And I didn't really like the torture porn stuff either. Like Hostel. Saw was okay. It was kind of like,
the first Saw is interesting because it's a B movie, but it kind of feels like an A-list movie because you have Cary Elwes and you have Danny Glover.
Yeah.
And it kind of feels a little bit, I hesitate to use the term elevated, but it feels like, above what it became. Because then it just slowly became Drek as the series went on. I think I made it till about part 4.
Okay.
Where I was like, I don't know. I just wasn't interested. I didn't care anymore.
Yeah,
but
same.
It can be creative at times. And Eli Roth, I like Eli Roth, if only because of his, how much he loves the genre and his expertise on it. But the Hostel movies never did. My favorite Eli Roth movie is The Green Inferno.
Oh my God, it's so good.
I feel like that one's derided. And here's the thing: I don't like cannibal movies. The cannibal, as far as exploitation cinema goes, the cannibal ones are the ones that interest me the least. I've probably seen Cannibal Holocaust all of once. I think I finally sat and watched the whole thing when it showed on Joe Bob Briggs last season. But I feel like with The Green Inferno, Eli Roth took all the elements and actually made one that was not only watchable but enjoyable.
Yeah.
And it kind of teeters on that line between satire and just making a really good and gory cannibal movie. Of course, without all the animal cruelty.
Yeah, it's always good where they're
of a film like Milo and Otis.
Heads.
Film like Milo and Otis.
Yeah, exactly. Air Bud. So like I kind of came back into it when I watched Terrifier. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I have not.
It's a really good exploitation film. It came out maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. And it's about a killer named Art the Clown.
Okay.
No history on him. No history. He just kind of shows up in these people's lives and goes completely apeshit, killing people. It's like you don't get any background on him. It's just really like complete exploitation. A real memorable killer. Like really, to me, like potential to be like up there with Freddy, Jason, Michael Myers.
Is rare to find these days because
it's really rare,
even when they come close, it almost will feel just like a carbon copy, a pale imitation of the original. So when one comes around and they have like all the markings, it's got to have, some kind of personality, not necessarily telling jokes like Freddy, but there has to be a personality to the character and a cool costume and cool deaths. When you hit that trifecta, that's when you've got something special on your hands.
They really nailed it. They're coming out with Terrifier 2 around Halloween.
Okay.
They say it's going to be bigger, gory, better than the original. We'll see. I mean, if they do, I think it could really just catapult the character.
I thought you said Terrifier. You're talking about Terrifier.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen it, but everybody raves about this movie.
It's unbelievable.
It was shot in Wisconsin, I believe.
Jersey.
Oh, that's the Jersey one. There was another one in Wisconsin where they had a real clown going around, and it turned out to be part of a real movie that was being made, and I cannot remember what the name of it was. That's the Jersey one now. Okay.
Yeah. So I think some of the guys involved in this might have been involved in the clown, the clown sightings that were going on in Wisconsin.
Okay, maybe so that's exactly what it was then. Yeah, because there was a thing, like it was pretty good, really really good ballyhoo, I would say.
It was a good time. It was a good sort of like.
So I've got to move Terrifier up the list because I believe the other Halloweenies are fans of that one as well. And as you know, they can be harsh critics.
They can. I was really excited when you all talked about it. I think it was on like a year-end list or something, because it's like one of the first times I've heard people outside of my circle talking about it. But it's really quality.
I will move that one up the list.
Yeah. So I always wonder, like, which of the seasons is your favorite season that you guys have done?
Well, obviously Friday the 13th, because that was my first one.
Fair, yeah. And it's also the best series.
Well, see, now I disagree. It's like I'm still mad that I wasn't on the whole Elm Street series.
Okay.
The Nightmare on Elm Street series is my absolute favorite horror series. For a minute there in my early 20s, I felt like it was Friday the 13th, but it's Nightmare on Elm Street. And the reason being, all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies are good to great. Mm-hmm. Even your worst Nightmare on Elm Street movie is a million times more imaginative than maybe even the best Friday the 13th or Halloween sequel. But the Friday the 13th series has so much. It was so much fun doing that season because there was so much to talk about, because there's so much history and just so much content, and there's more good Friday the 13th sequels than there are Halloween sequels.
Oh yeah,
I think I can stand by that statement as I'm thinking about it.
I would go so far to say that like the Halloween series is maybe a step above the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series.
Now that brings to mind a question that somebody asked me, a new friend of mine because this happens to me sometimes now. So at the Rock Island Public House, Right 10 Bar, Blue Island, the south suburb of Chicago, people come in and they'll sit at the bar and they'll have a drink or two, and then they'll say something like, I don't want to sound weird or nothing, but I listen to your podcast. And I'm usually very excited to hear it, because then I'm like, oh, I get to talk to somebody about horror movies, because that's really all I want to do. And a gentleman was in there, this guy Caleb was saying, he was asking me, what do you think the messiest horror franchise is? And he thinks, to your point, he said he mentioned Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I also I mentioned Halloween just to kind of get a conversation going. But I think those are the two messiest. Like Hellraiser's bad. After part 4, it's hard to find any redeemable qualities as far as the franchise goes. The witchcraft movies are their own beat. Have you ever checked out any of the witchcraft movies? There's like
I've never even heard of the witchcraft movies.
They're very low rent.
Okay.
I think they might be the bottom of the barrel as far as horror franchise goes. They were direct to video drunk that they were just cranking out, like, I want to say every couple of months. But when you see the box art, you'll remember that.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it's got to come down to probably, as far as messy goes, definitely Halloween or Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But having kind of dived into some of the other Texas Chainsaw Massacres that I avoided, I kind of like that series because I love the original. 2's fun, 3's dull, 4 is at least weird. Have you ever seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation, aka Return?
I actually watched all of them leading up to the re-release because I was going on a podcast to talk about it with some other rap nerds that are really into horror.
That's one thing I love about your show, because that's a thing, like, all the best rappers have a love of horror movies, and a knowledge that puts ours to shame sometimes. Like Snoop Dogg's favorite movie is Phantasm. How cool is that? He says
that's wild.
There's a great clip of him, I think probably at some screening of Bones or something in LA, where he mentions Phantasm being one of his favorite movies. And I believe one of Beyonce's, not that she's rap, but in the hip hop world, Beyonce is a big fan of The Beast Within.
Oh my God, I used to love The Beast Within when I was little.
Beast Within has one of my favorite video box art, of all time, where, we dare you to sit through the last 15 minutes of this movie, without turning it off. And I just, like I said, I love that kind of ballyhoo. I may be misremembering it, but The Beast Within is the one where he turns somebody inside out at the end, right? God, now I'm trying to remember, but his mother is assaulted by a giant cicada. Mm-hmm. And then it happens. When he's going through puberty, the son, he turns out to be part cicada. And then, terrorizes the town for the final moments of the film. And it's terrific makeup effects. A lot of great bladder effects. Very gory, very memorable. Very cool picture. Written by Tom Holland of Fright Night fame and Psycho 2. Yeah. So definitely one worth checking out.
I'll have to give it a look again. Because I tend to come home, like, I get home after everybody goes to sleep, I put on a horror movie. Usually because I'm an old man, I end up falling asleep halfway through.
That's why I tell people I love movies with subtitles. I just watch movies at, I put movies at 11 o'clock. I put a black and white subtitle movie, I'll just lull me to sleep. It's like a warm blanket.
Yeah, it really is. It's like I have to set an alarm on my phone so I wake up to go to bed.
So you actually go lay in your bed.
Yeah, to keep things cool at the household. But it's funny because we did an episode on Halloween, comparing it to the Nas Illmatic record. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Nas Illmatic record.
I'm familiar with it. I don't know enough about it, but I think you mentioned this to me, or I definitely saw you post about this. Because I didn't have a chance to, but I wanted to check out the episode and check out the album because this sounds compelling to me.
So it's really like Illmatic was this album that came out like 93.
Okay.
And it was a genre defining album. Like it sort of re-energized the entire genre, changed the direction of where music was going as far as rap music was concerned. And everything since has been about bringing it back to that without ever bringing it back to that. Right. So his second record was Unfairly Maligned. It ended up being a really good record, but it wasn't that classic. Kind of like Halloween 2,
okay.
Halloween 2 was more of like them trying to like stay with like the slasher times, something more bloody, something a little bit more like almost like kind of doing what Friday the 13th was doing.
Right.
For Nas's second record, he kind of took what Biggie Smalls was doing, like the sort of like mafioso lifestyle. Whereas like Illmatic was just like this 19-year-old kid from Queensbridge's view of the world. And he was smarter than everybody.
It was a little bit more real.
It was very real. Yeah. Yeah, it was like, he was like on the cover of New York Times Magazine. Like that's how important this record was. And this was like back in 93 where they didn't give a fuck about rap.
Well, and that's just it. Like that even, I mean, rap is obviously around at that point, but it's not as big as it becomes just in a couple of years, right?
Yeah. And that's what his second album becomes, like a kind of trying to keep up with what it became a couple of years later. The sort of like mafioso lifestyle, sort of big money version of what the music was. Like he tried to sort of fall into that world, and it was maligned because people didn't want that from him. They didn't want to allow him to grow. But looking back, it's a really good record. You know,
I remember the cover. I mean, that was one that was, I worked at record stores all through high school and a little bit through my 20s. And that was always one that we sold quite a bit of those.
I'm sure. Yeah, it did quite well.
And that was in the late 90s. So that's even, almost 10 years after it had come out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was one of those records that stayed doing well. But after that, everything was like, we're going back. We're going back to the original. And it never pays off because you can't go back to the original, right? Just like Halloween can never make a movie as good as the original. Texas Chainsaw Massacre can never make a movie like that again.
You are 100% right on that, which leads me to, did you like the remake? Or the requel or whatever you want to call it?
It was really kind of shitty.
Yeah.
I wanted to like it. I liked it up through where the police van crashed. Like that whole scene. Right. To like when, he kills the woman in the front seat. I thought that was really well done. And after that, it was just like, it kind of went to shit. I mean, it was good and gory. I listened to the podcast that you did talking about it with, was it the Epic?
The Epic Film guys. Yeah, they were a fun bunch.
Film guys. Yeah. So I listened to that because I wanted to hear your thoughts before we came on today. And I'm kind of where you are. It's like, if it wasn't a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, it would have been super fun.
It might be a new slasher classic. But they couldn't even get the mask right on this one. I mean, I don't know if we really went into it on the Epic Film Guys podcast, but the more I thought about the movie, the problem with that mask is that they try to make it look realistic, but why do you want a realistic mask in a Texas Chainsaw movie? The best one is the first mask.
Without question.
That's probably not what it would look like if you actually stitch skin together, but it's the concept, it's the idea. It just looks cool. But yeah, that was a soulless movie with some memorable moments. And I can't believe that people are still debating it on I don't know how much time you spend on Twitter, but
too much.
Me too. People are still arguing about that. And even if you like it or not, it's a stupid movie. And when
it's a really stupid movie.
Stupid with 2 O's, but that can be good sometimes.
It could be, yeah.
This is not a life altering film. And if you're wasting that much of your day being upset about somebody else's opinion of the latest film in a notoriously lackluster franchise, and I don't know what to tell you to do. You need to start building those little ships in a bottle or focus on your writing. Get a hobby.
You gotta do something different. Yeah.
What did Bill Shatner say on Saturday Night Live? Get a life.
Perfect. Yeah. I mean, it had some funny moments, I thought. I love how quickly they dispatched of Sally Hardesty.
There's something to be said for that. I like the idea they did it. I liked that notion that he doesn't know who she is, that she spent 50 years worrying about this, and I
thought that was brilliant.
But they didn't do enough with it thematically. I think they threw a lot of these themes into this blender or threw it all at the wall like spaghetti to see what stuck. And you get these little glimpses of, oh man, that would have been cool if they went there, or oh, I never thought about it like that. And they never really nail the point. They never get it home. And from a friend of mine actually contacted me, the guy I mentioned on the show who had been to one of those early test screenings. He said it's essentially the same movie. They didn't do much reworking on it.
Well, it's kind of a problem. It's kind of the problem with Netflix in general. Like I find most Netflix stuff is usually like good enough, but it's like 33% wrong. Well, whether it's too long or too short or just like doesn't hit what it's supposed to hit.
Well, I know you're a Halloweenies fan, so you're familiar with our adoration for the Martin Scorsese's The Irishman.
Yes,
was a Netflix production, and that's a movie that I think thematically I like it. I like the story, but I don't think the special effects are necessarily up to snuff. And I think it would have worked better had they hired younger actors. And despite it being Scorsese behind the camera, I think there are large chunks of that movie that don't look like a movie. And despite him being such an advocate for cinema, they don't look like a movie. They look like a Netflix TV series. Now, that's only coming from someone who has only seen. I never got to see it on the big screen, so maybe that's my perception is skewed. But I don't feel that cinematic quality in The Irishman. I feel like it is a miniseries.
Yeah, it has that feel to it. Like it's like an A&E series.
Yes.
About the Irish mob.
Yeah, and you can do all the special effects in the world, but 70-year-old Robert De Niro don't move like 1970s Robert De Niro.
That's where they lost me,
facts.
right? When he came out and beat up the guy, he looked like he was going to hurt his hip walking out there to get him.
Like you could have at least put the stunt double in for that one,
I mean, you saw the way they did it with Luke and the Mandalorian.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I was not a big fan of them bringing Luke back. I mean, it was great to see one of my favorite characters back, and he's back on Boba Fett, of course, too. And I appreciate that more in Star Wars movies, because Star Wars movies are all about pushing special effects forward.
Yeah,
and so it doesn't always work. Like the Peter Cushing in Rogue One is good, but it's not great.
Same thing Leia as well.
Absolutely. But it's good. Like, it's fine. It's not like an abomination or something, but that's what Star Wars movies do. Even going back and looking at that first film, my favorite, the 1977 original, like you can still see it when you watch the versions that weren't altered for special. You can see matte lines around stuff.
Yeah.
You can essentially see the strings, but it pushed special effects to get to a point where we're at now. So you almost have to, push it just over that edge where, it's good, and you have to work its way up to getting great. And I think the Star Wars movies are better examples at it. I don't think you need to be doing that in, this kind of very personal, very cool. I love the story of The Irishman, this very personal drama about this man. I don't think that's the place to be. What do I want to say? Not confused. What am I thinking? Distracted by these special effects.
And that's the thing about Scorsese movies in general. Like, they bring you into a world. So you don't want something that's going to take you out of it in the first 20 minutes.
I think. Oh, man, you put the pin on that one.
So what are your thoughts on the Star Wars trip, like the Star Wars movies in general? Because I've heard you mention it briefly, like here and there. You guys mention it, but just like of the whole arc of all the Star Wars movies, like what's your feeling on it?
So, I was born into a family. My mother already loves Star Wars. My dad says October of 77. I don't know how they lasted that long without seeing it. He says, let's go see the Star Wars movies every stop out. She goes, no, I don't want to go see that. And she said she was instantly converted as soon as that Star Destroyer and the two ships go. So I'm born in 1980. Now my mom's excited because now this is before adults could buy toys for themselves. This wasn't a thing back in 1980. So now she could buy the toys. And she was buying me the toys. And the first time they tried to get me to watch Star Wars, probably when I'm like 1 or 2 on VHS, I sat there and said, this movie's dumb. Only because I don't like being told what to do. I didn't like being told what to do then. I don't like being told what to do now. But eventually I sat down and watched it. And I'll tell you what, for most of the 80s, I think that's the only movie I think I watched that movie every day in my parents' basement, because they put me in front of the TV and I loved watching that movie, which is like why I could probably recite that first one front to back. And I love all the films in the original trilogy, but nothing can touch the pure magic. I think sometimes cinephiles, or rather, so somebody wants to ask me, what the conversation came up around the bar. What are your favorite movies of all time? And I bring up Star Wars, and people, oh no, that's just popcorn stuff, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm not talking about the franchise as a whole. I'm talking about that one film as a singular experience, the film that, changed the way movies were made, changed the way movies were marketed, changed the way special effects were done, that, a true cultural phenomenon. So then I'm, 19 when the Phantom Menace comes out, and I, like most people, was disappointed, but I still went and saw all 3 of the prequels twice at the show, thinking like, oh, maybe I missed something. Maybe I didn't get it. And I can't get on board with the recent kind of rehabilitation of the prequels, the sequel trilogy. I think they're all C pluses. I think all 3 of them are C pluses across the board. I think there's good and bad stuff in all of them. And the best things that come out of the Disney era of Star Wars are The Mandalorian, Rogue One, and my favorite, Solo, A Star Wars Story.
Solo's much better than it gets credit for.
Oh my God.
It's a good fun romp.
So me and Mike Rothman are sitting in the theater at the press screening. This is 2 weeks before it's coming out, right? So we're like part of that first group of people to see it after they premiered it at Cannes. And we're just kind of giggling through the whole thing. and we're walking out talking about, I can't believe it. They finally got it right. This is going to be the hit of the summer. Everybody's going to be talking about it. I wrote a rave review for Daily Grindhouse, and then it came out, and just the venom people had for that movie. And I was like, I knew I was, but sometimes you ask yourself, am I wrong? Did I miss this? Did I get something wrong? I knew I was 100% right.
Oh, you were right. Yeah.
In that
That's
movie.
a good ass movie.
And, although I have started seeing a little bit more Monday morning quarterbacking on it, people coming around on it. I think the voices that didn't like it were just too loud when it came out, but it's some of John Williams' best work. I'm neglecting to remember who did the rest of the score, but what I like about that one, it captures the feel, it captures the essence. It's the first one to do it since the 70s. They captured that essence of the first movie. Now, is Empire Strikes Back a deeper movie than Star Wars? Yeah, perhaps. But when you talk about the spirit of that original 1977 film, that gets it right. And Mandalorian comes close, but I think it gets too bogged down in all the Mandalorian lore and then, bringing the Jedi stuff in. Part of the cool stuff when Mandalorian started was that there were no Jedi. It was supposed to be like Solo. I don't think there's any use of the Force in that movie outside of Darth Maul at the end.
Yeah.
And I was confused by that because I didn't keep up with all the cartoons and stuff.
Oh, I mean, I nerded out hard on Star Wars. So like I caught up on all the Clone Wars stuff, and I was like,
I hear the Clone Wars is excellent.
There's a lot of like really boring shit in the Clone Wars. Like you could skip any like Princess Padme episodes. Right. They're all terrible.
I need you to put together like a list of like the 10 best Clone Wars episodes.
Okay. I will say the final four of like the newest run they had, like the final four might be one of the best things Star Wars has ever done.
I've heard that. I really liked Rebels for the first season or so too, before I kind of tuned out on that.
Yeah, Rebels was pretty good too. It went pretty deep in like the third season, like really into like Jedi lore, which was kind of cool, and like Force stuff. And Clone Wars does that too. But the thing that Clone Wars does really cool is it does these genre pieces throughout. Like it'll be like 3 or 4 episode arcs where it's like a murder mystery featuring like the stormtroopers, like some like conspiracies going on. And it's like it's like just really like stormtroopers, like following this crew as stormtroopers.
I think somebody else told me about that arc and was telling me how good it was, because I had my, dug my heels in, like I deal with any prequel related shit. But now we're at a point now where even I, like when I was my favorite episode of Book of Boba Fett was of course the hangout episode where it was just him and Amy Sedaris rebuilding the starfighter. But even for me, as somebody who doesn't like the prequel shit, it's kind of cool to see how they kind of work that all in and how they are bridging these worlds. And I mean, I'm really not jazzed about Obi-Wan because how much are we're back on Tatooine again?
Yeah, I know.
What can happen? I mean, look, I've said it before. I am a sucker for anything live action Star Wars. They've got me. They've got me since 1980. And I will totally sit down and watch it, but I'm curious to see what they do with that.
Yeah, I'm hoping for good things, but I hope it doesn't have much to do with Luke or anything. Just like him being a broken man in the desert.
They keep mucking that up by bringing in Luke, and that's part of the problem. And I think they said J.J. Abrams said it about The Force Awakens, is that the problem is once you have Luke in the movie, the story automatically, all focus goes to Luke.
Yeah,
he's fucking Luke Skywalker. He's the coolest. And I liked Book of Boba Fett because it was people who were mad that it wasn't the Boba Fett that you think that you get in Empire and Jedi, despite the fact that he doesn't do anything.
Boba Fett has always been a sucker.
Yeah, absolutely. But you get with the Mandalorian, you get the Boba Fett show that you wanted. And with the Book of Boba Fett, you're getting that's like you said, that story of an older broken man who's come to peace with himself, is trying to change. And I just thought, I mean, it didn't always click for me, but I preferred the slower pace, or not preferred, but I liked the slower pace of that one because I didn't want just another Mandalorian. Yeah. Because even I reviewed 2 episodes of The Mandalorian for the AV Club last season. It was the one with the Jedi. It was rather titled The Jedi, where we introduced Ahsoka, and then the finale. And the finale was cool, but I got called a joyless edgelord for giving it the shitty grade of a B.
The horrors.
Yeah. And it's like, do I need another gunfight? Like, it just spins at wheels. Like, I love laser fights in Star Wars movies, but you need to change it up, or at least change up the locations. Another gunfight in another Imperial outpost that's gray and looks the same. We live in this vast universe, and I think we're starting to kind of break that mold on Star Wars television, but I'm afraid they're just going to keep getting stuck on Tatooine.
Yeah, I mean, I have hope that they're going to go back to like the Knights of the Old Republic era, just because it's away from all of that stuff.
That's what everybody seems to want. I've never played it before, but a friend of mine I used to work with when I tended bar at Chili's was a big fan of the Knights of the Old Republic game.
Okay.
I think it was a computer game. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that one, but he said it was the best Star Wars game that he's ever played.
I've watched the like clips, like the sort of like
the emulators,
cinema clips.
Yeah.
And I had a period where I just started watching like a lot of like Star Wars like fan videos talking about stuff. And like, so there's a lot of really good like Sith characters through that world that I think would be really interesting to explore. But I mean, Star Wars is this gigantic universe, and they just focus on one family the whole goddamn time.
Yeah, and a dysfunctional family at that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it'd be like if our whole universe was the Trumps.
Yeah, that's good. It's like, but you know what though? Like I said, I'm a sucker for like when the Mandalorian premiered, and yeah, they're back on Tatooine, but man, it looks like the Star Wars that I love. As someone who loves that first movie so much, all those little touches where it's like it'll be this hut in the desert that's very kind of man-made, but then it's got a computer keyboard built into it.
Yeah,
that ramshackle look that I love from the Star Wars series.
And I've kind of really enjoyed getting into the Tusken Raider sort of background. That was awesome. I thought that was great.
That was awesome. And I love when TV shows take what you previously thought and change your perspective on it, which is one of the reasons I absolutely adore Cobra Kai.
I haven't watched the most recent season, but I do like, it's one of those shows that I'm like, I'm not going to watch it anymore. And then I watch it and I love it.
Well, because it's easy to like half-hour episodes. Yeah. And I hesitate to say like the stories are simple, because it's not. What I love about the show is how it deals in the gray areas, how who you think is good is not necessarily the best, and who you think is bad, they have their own, there's a reason they are the way they are. And I just think that maybe if Star Wars had done a little bit more of that with the sequel trilogy, it would have been a more interesting turn, because I like those 3 sequel movies. I mean, Force Awakens was great, Last Jedi has a lot of cool stuff, and Rise of Skywalker just seems like a sloppy rush to the finish line.
Yeah, that was a real disappointment. But I mean, I kind
sorry, there's just big parts of all of them that I really enjoy, and then there's parts that I'm kind of like, oh man, what the fuck were they thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I got to watch the final trilogy through my kids' eyes.
Now, yeah, what do your kids think of that?
I mean, she loves it. She didn't really like the last one all that much, like most of America. But she really liked it. Like, I think it was interesting because I tried to get her to watch the original after we saw that. She liked Rey. Like, she connected to Rey. She dressed like Rey for character day at school like 3 years in a row. But she, I tried to make her watch the 77 Star Wars, and she was out in like the first half hour.
Because it's weird
because of the pacing.
When you look at that movie and how, that is, it's not necessarily the blueprint for the blockbuster. I actually read a really good piece on the AV Club from Tom Brehan, who says actually 1989's Batman is really kind of the blueprint for what we know as a blockbuster today. It's a very good article. I was compelled by it. But Star Wars moves very slow. I mean, when it picks up the pace, it really picks up the pace.
It does, yeah.
But it's very deliberate. It takes its time. You kind of meander around with these droids. Yes, I could see. I wonder about that sometimes with youngsters if they watch that, especially if you started with the Book of Boba Fett or any of the other films where you kind of hit the ground running, how that changes their perspective.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it also looked dated compared to the new one, but I think maybe when she's older, she might appreciate it more. But at the time when she saw it, it was like, she was like, this is boring as hell.
You almost just got to skip right ahead to the trench run.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Like, show her like, all right, this is where you end up, but you have to work.
You have to go through all this stuff. Yeah. And the sword fighting is really bad.
It's because it's just so funny how, I mean, when you grew up with it, how, they were directed as saying it's like Excalibur. It's hard to hold. It's heavy.
Yeah.
And now, no, it's, you can spin it around like a baton.
Yeah. You could do flips.
Yeah.
You could be an 800-year like green toad type of creature and just do flips all over the walls.
And I've still got that old man in me where I wished we got something a little bit closer in tone to that original 77, just because I hold it so near and dear to my heart.
Yeah,
I absolutely adore that movie.
Yeah, I got to see it in theaters when it came out. Like I was like 5. I'm an old man. Yeah, so
I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure. I figured we were around the same age. Yeah, I didn't get to see. I got to see Return of the Jedi, and I remember it because I would have been 3. I would have been going on 3, and my parents left me at my grandma's house because they were going to see it first because they heard that it was a little scary for younger kids, and I was already into Star Wars, and I knew where they were going, and I screamed bloody murder. I was so pissed that they were going to see Return of the Jedi without me. And they ended up taking me the following week. And I still remember going. It was a thunderstorm outside. And
wow,
my uncle went with us. And I remember sitting in that theater because I remember the crowd, because this was back when you had to go to the theaters for stuff.
Yeah.
And it was a packed house, and the crowd went bananas when Darth Vader picked up the Emperor and threw him down the reactor shaft. I still remember a very vivid memory.
Yeah, I have remember. I saw Jaws in the theater. I don't know if it was like a re-release or what, because I remember it, and I would have been 3 when it came out.
Right.
But I definitely remember having nightmares about it. And my brother was born, so I had to have seen it later because my brother's 4 years younger than me. So in '75, he wasn't around. Right. But that, and then E.T. is the other one. I remember I saw it at a drive-in, sitting on top of my parents' car, crying my eyes out.
I went to see E.T. Well, I saw E.T. I say E.T. was the first movie I saw at the show. And I don't know if you're confused by that, but that's a very Chicago vernacular thing for your listeners. We don't say the movies or go to the theater. You went to the show. I don't know. The show.
I mean, I got what you're saying. So,
but I've had that happen where I'm talking to people and they're like, what are you talking? The show. But it is a very Chicago. I think it's very indicative of the South Side of Chicago as well. But I claim it was E.T. My mother claims it was Return of the Jedi, but I always tell her I have a better memory than her. So I'm probably right, despite the fact that I would have been 2 years old. But I went to see E.T. We went to see Jaws. Funny you mentioned that. We'd see Jaws at one of the big drive-ins 2 Memorial Days a day ago, during the kind of the worst of the pandemic.
Yeah. And
we got there early enough where we got to see E.T. as well. And I'm sitting in that car just trying not to fucking cry. Like, I don't know what. It was just taking me back to being a kid. That's Spielberg, that manipulative son of a bitch.
Yeah, he's good.
But E.T. is an interesting movie too, because we all loved that movie when we were kids, but that is a weird movie for kids.
Yeah.
But I think it also maybe goes to show why our generation is the best generation, in that our kids' movies did deal with adult themes, did have slower pacing. I'm just not a big I tuned out on the whole Pixar thing years ago. It just feels like every movie for kids now is that.
Yeah.
It's just loud and it's colorful, and every reviewer will say, oh, and it's got a lot of jokes that will go over to kids' heads for adults. I'm like, or just make a movie for kids that doesn't treat them with disrespect. It treats them a little bit smarter. I
mean, I think Stranger Things does that really well.
Which one?
Stranger Things.
I haven't caught up with that, but I love the first season of that show.
It's pretty fantastic. Like, it's held up well through the three seasons. And again, seeing it through the eyes of an 11-year-old, it's similar. Like, your kid's thrown into these dangerous situations.
Well, now
by yourself.
You're watching these movies. Do you have to watch a lot of that junk? Or at 11 years old, have you taught her right? Does she have good taste? Or
she has pretty good taste. She's sort of moved off of the kid movies. So she has a mix of like horror movies, and then she'll binge watch Gilmore Girls. So it's like the sort of influence of myself and my wife on her. So she's like sort of getting a good education of like what it was like in the 80s and 90s to grow up.
That's awesome.
To the point where it's like, we let her ride the subway alone from time to time.
Really?
Go to the market by herself. Not just like aimlessly.
I tell you what, I'm still. I was in New York. I was still a little nervous about riding the subway alone. That I was going to get lost. That's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it's like school, home, that type of thing. It's not like go, catch a movie on 14th Street and come back. You've
got very good. I will say, in our Chicago versus New York debate, you've got very good public transportation in New York City.
It's not bad. I mean, being here, you see all the flaws.
So when I was out there, I was staying in New Rochelle.
Okay, that's where my mom grew up. My mom was
where the Petries are from on Dick Van Dyke.
Oh, really?
That's where they lived. And I didn't realize when my friend John Abrams, the editor-in-chief at Daily Grindhouse, I didn't realize when he said, "Oh yeah, you can stay at my place when you're in New York." I didn't realize that how far out he was. New Rochelle is essentially kind of like the neighborhood I live in here in Chicago.
Okay,
it's a city, but you got to get on. We have it the Metro. I don't know what's that the train line.
That would be I think it's the Harlem line of the MTA.
The MTA, yes. So you have to take that in every night. And so I would, go into the city every night. What's nice is I had until 2 a.m. That was the last train back to New Rochelle. And one night I got on the subway and I swear to God, I wasn't even drunk, but I was looking at it and I'm like, all right, I think I got it. I'm gonna go this way. So I'm sitting on that train and I'm like, I don't think I'm going the right way anymore. And I get off and I go ask the attendant, how far are we from, the Grand Central Station? And his eyes just bug out of his head. I still don't know where the fuck I was. I just looked at him. I said, I guess I'm taking an Uber. He goes, yeah, that would probably be best. I'm like, great. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Yeah.
And I still, to this day, I have no idea where the fuck I was at.
That's amazing. That's the way it is on the subway, man. I mean, I've been fortunate enough where and I've been really drunk on the subway in my day that I never missed my stop.
That's
no
impressive.
matter how drunk I was.
That is impressive. That is a skill. Put that on a resume.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's got me to where I am today. So I actually had a question for you about a non-horror related movie.
Absolutely.
And it's a movie I grew up watching. It was on HBO all the time when I was a kid.
Okay.
It's called Over the Edge.
Oh, Over the Edge. Fucking A. One of the great teen angst dramas of it's probably closer. I mean, like I said, we're not that far in age, but I love that movie. But for people who are just about 5 to 10 years younger than me, that movie changed their lives. Yeah. And one of the reasons I appreciate it is because there's a lot of Cheap Trick on the soundtrack.
That's why I brought it up. One of the reasons I brought it up, because I know you're a big Cheap Trick fan. So I just wanted to tell you a story about it that I think is pretty funny.
Let's hear it.
So I feel like I'm talking about my daughter way too much on this, but
no, I love it. I love it.
When she was in nursery school, she went to you have your kids' birthday parties, right? So we go to this person's house and I didn't really know them well. I'd met them a couple times and they had an Over the Edge poster on the wall. And I was like, oh, Over the Edge. It's, I was looking for any in to talk to these people because I didn't know them at all. And I'm kind of introverted when I'm in those scenarios, right? Because I like weird music, I like weird movies, and most adults don't really get it. So I was like, all right, I have this in. I'm going to talk to you about it. And he was like, oh, I was in that movie. And I look at the poster, and I was like, holy shit, you were Claude. So the one, I don't know if you remember Claude, he's the one that had the acid in his pocket.
Absolutely. I remember Claude.
So, I mean, basically, my daughter's best friend, her dad is Claude.
Oh man, that's so cool. So,
I mean, it's just one of those weird movies that I made a good friend out of because of that.
Well, yeah, that's great. You know what? That is truly, I think I don't know if it's available readily, but I know it shows up on Turner Classic Movies after once in a while. I know my mom's a big fan of it, but you want to talk about just a skate. It's hard. It's very entertaining too.
Yeah,
it's a scathing commentary on white flight.
Oh yeah,
in that era, and just I knew kids, or I know people who are a little bit older who said that was their life though when their parents moved out to the suburbs where there just wasn't anything to do because they didn't take the time, kind of like we're talking about with the movies. With they weren't treating kids with respect and giving them something to do. And then they just kind of, started wilding out. And maybe blowing up the school is a bit extreme, but
yeah,
I think most teenagers should watch. When are you gonna sit your daughter down with you need to watch Over the Edge?
I've tried to talk to her about it because, like, she knows him, she knows Tom, and I actually they did a screening at Nighthawk where it was him, the main character, and the writer and the director, and we went, and he took his oldest daughter. His oldest daughter is like 19 now, but she was like the first time she ever saw it was in the theater, like the showing where her dad was answering questions at the end. But yeah, where I grew up like an hour north of the city, and it was this apartment complex called Amberlands, where it was like all the families that like couldn't afford housing up there could go and like rent or eventually own.
Right.
And our life was like, all the kids. So parents would put like all their magazines in the basement when they were done with them, right? And all the apartments were connected by the laundry rooms where the magazines were. So we would just run through all the apartments, look for all the skin magazines we could find, and take them up to our treehouse and just put them in plastic bags and like hang out up there all day. Like that was our version of New Granada, like basically in a tree fort with skin magazines.
Yeah, I didn't have that, but I like that movie. I didn't have that much angst when I was in high school. I suppose I got onto the internet real early. That's why I spent way too much time on the internet way too young. Like I got onto the internet like in 1994. We got Prodigy at the house. And I just kind of fell in love with it. I just said, this is so cool. And then, I got into the internet one night, the next night, I'm like, how can I use this to meet girls? And
right?
It wasn't quite at that point yet, but I was an early advocate of internet dating. And I don't think any of the young bloods listening to your show don't realize, like, it used to not be as easy as Tinder and Bumble. You couldn't just swipe. You had to go into a chat room.
Oh, yeah.
You had to cross your fingers that it was the person you were talking was who you were looking for, who you wanted to talk to.
Yeah.
And it was just a very different time. I remember my first time doing it. I went out and met a girl out in the burbs of Chicago, out near Berwyn, where I still hang out there because I host master movie nights out at the Cigars and Stripes, the barbecue place out there. And I remember having that moment like, this is weird. We hadn't exchanged pictures. We didn't do anything, but we ended up having a good couple of dates. Good time.
That's awesome. That's amazing. I had a similar thing, like, because there was like this underground rap message board called undergroundhiphop.com, cleverly. And I remember,
let you know who, but here, this is who's going to be here.
Yeah,
there's no question about it.
It was like sort of like one of those things, like there was one woman on the thing, and it was like
the apple of everybody's eye.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. But I happened to be going to do a show in Columbus, where she was from. So that
Columbus,
was like
Ohio,
yeah. So I was like, okay, let's meet up. And very similar story. But it was cool for a couple of days. And then it was like, ready to go.
Time to get home. Yeah,
time to get out of here.
Yeah. But time to get the fuck out of Columbus. I've been drunk in Columbus before. I was in Columbus, Ohio. Me and my buddy Dan decided, are you familiar with Guided by Voices?
Yes.
From Dayton, Ohio. We were following them around that weekend. And their first show was at the Bluebird in Columbus. So there was a Bluebird in Columbus, the headliners in Kentucky and Louisville, and then Bloomington, Indiana. And we were just going to go all around. It was actually, March is the anniversary of that. So the first time we get there, my buddy Dan, I partied with this guy. I've known this guy since Boy Scouts. One of my favorite people to party with. He looks at me and goes, Mike, let's make such a spectacle out of ourselves that the band remembers who we are all weekend. And we ended up meeting this group of friends led by this guy Gary Smith, who we ended up partying with the whole weekend and are still friends with to this day. But I ended up on stage that night.
Oh wow.
Because the band, Bob Pollard, noticed that I sort of looked like Ryan Adams.
Okay.
And consequently I ended up on stage all 3 nights.
That's amazing.
And they would just bring me up, and I'd say something stupid into the microphone, and then they'd kick me off the stage. But the bass player at the time, Chris Solenko, was very kind to us. He let us piss in the band's bucket They had a bucket. They didn't have a green room. They just had a bucket backstage they were pissing in during the set.
This was in Columbus.
This is in Columbus, Ohio.
I know that green room because I played that room a couple of times. That's the one that there's like a White Castle across the street, right?
Oh, Jesus, man. Probably.
Okay.
It was the Bluebird. I definitely remember. No, was it or was it Little Brothers?
Could be
no,
both.
The Bluebird was Indiana. Little Brothers was the one in Columbus.
Gotcha. Okay.
I got to start writing this shit down.
Yeah. Columbus is a fun city though. But there's no good green rooms anywhere.
I'm trying to think if I ever
in Columbus anyway.
If I've ever seen, because you obviously you perform, you rap, you play the same clubs that I would have been playing in rock bands, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think if the Abbey Pub in Chicago's green room wasn't great, but it was
the Abbey Pub. I almost broke my ankle every time I played there going down the stairs to the green room.
Reggie's and Double Doors green room was all right.
Okay.
And Reggie's was appropriately filthy. Most places we played didn't have a green room. So anytime there was a green room, I mean, you really, like me, I couldn't sit back there because I usually had friends come to the show. So I couldn't hide back there the whole night. So, but I would have to sit back there for at least like 20 minutes and take it in that, I'm in a band. I'm in a green room. This is cool. I feel special. Because at other times you'd be in, I remember being in a green room at a show in Milwaukee at Mad Planet, and it was a bunch of local bands, and we were kind of the out-of-towners, and I think we kind of muscled our way under the bill, and nobody knew who we were. So we're sitting back there, and we're trying to like hang out with these guys, and none of them, like you could tell, none of them wanted anything to do with us. So we're like, fuck it, let's just go hang outside. So then I got ridiculously drunk doing Grand Marnier shots with the owner of the place, who is this really, really very attractive woman who everybody in the band thought, oh, Mike's gonna do it. And then she wised up, realized it was a bad business decision to get involved with me. And I just left there sitting at the bar. But to this day, last time I was up in Milwaukee, they weren't open because of pandemic stuff. But our sticker remained on the one cooler there for years. The Romeros, my old rock and roll band. Yeah.
Nice. So what is your music history? Like, do you mind going into it a little bit?
No, not at all. I was a late bloomer to playing guitar. About 97, 98, I picked up Live at Budokan, and I saw The Who on their Quadrophenia tour. And I said, you know what? I want to finally learn how to play guitar. So I bought a guitar, took lessons, never was very good. Always wanted to be in a band, right? It was that whole thing, that Gene Simmons thing where you want to be in a band because you want to meet girls, and didn't really get into a band until my buddy Pat O'Sullivan, who he and I were both mad that we weren't asked to be in every other band in the neighborhood. We said, well, let's just start our own. But we were like amateur, and we were in our early 20s now. We were playing at a high school level, but we were in our 20s. He was the bass. He was playing bass. I was playing guitar. I'm not a great guitar player, but he didn't even know like an A from a B from a C. He'd like, I'd be like, I could play a C. It's like, oh, you mean a 3, and he'd be like, that would be the string that he was playing. I'm like, all right, we're gonna get you learned on that. And then I ended up becoming a lead singer because I wrote songs, so I knew the words, and I never saw myself as a lead singer either. And we went through a slew of drummers, and it was always the Romeros though. Like I got outvoted. I wanted to be called the Argentos. I got outvoted by 2 guys who didn't play, who eventually left the band too, which is funny. We voted the Romeros, and then we were the Romeros for, I think I went out to dinner with the last guitar player, the guitar player who lasted the longest, the best guitar player we ever had, Bob Sylvester, good guy, horror nut, terrific guitar player. Just he's one of these guys who spent his high school years like the over the edge kids out in the burbs, and just playing guitar and learning old metal riffs. So he could play our kind of power poppy, Cheap Trick influenced, punk stuff easily. He just brought this different flair to it that really, I think, gave us a distinct sound in a very kind of, by the numbers subgenre of music. And we just kind of played clubs over the years. We never recorded enough. That's my biggest regret. But there's a really great live recording that we have on SoundCloud we had taken like a 3-year hiatus. We came back for the International Pop Overthrow Festival, which is this traveling festival that would showcase, power pop bands, and we played it with our first one with a full horn section. We ended up keeping the horn section with us, and it's whenever we tried to record, I think we tried to polish this up a little too much, whereas we should have just been recording live because that's what we sounded like.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the best recording we have. And there's great video of it on YouTube. I just really like playing. I like being on stage. I like playing guitar. I like having fun. I like the party. I like that was the thing about my 20s when we were doing the Romeros. Like, I don't know how many people actually liked our band so much as people knew that we were going to have the best party afterwards. Because we had me and Pat had an apartment above a bar in Blue Island. So we could, if we wanted to do an after show, we could play. Nobody hassled us.
Yeah.
And just everybody had a great time. And man, those were good times. I'd like to start playing again. I've had a couple other projects kind of start off. And it's harder to write songs at 41 years old. You're not as angsty. I'm actually pretty content. I'm pretty content in my life right now. I'm not constantly on the prowl like I used to be, or constantly mad because a girl wasn't paying attention to me. And you know, all the best power pop songs are about a car or a girl.
Yeah. It's a weird phenomenon writing rap music at this age, because it's like, I don't want to like rap like Jay-Z about like 401k. So it's like,
yeah. So what do you rap? What do you rap about?
I mean, where
do you go? Where do you look? What's your muse?
It really depends on what's going. Like, I think a lot of times, like, I just write for therapy. So it's like to make sense of the world. So like my last two records were sort of like really just dealing with like the craziness of like what happened to America under Trump. Not so much like fuck Trump, just like we've all lost our minds collectively, and sort of trying to like work our way through that. Like,
right. I mean, like, that was, I mean, whether that was the cause or the symptom, who knows? But there's no denying that we are living through. I mean, everybody says it's always interesting times, but I feel like as someone who's been around for 41 years, this is definitely the weirdest it's been.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's like, we're waiting for an excuse, quite honestly. Right. And he was the excuse. Like we've been dying to like turn on each other.
Oh, it was a long time coming.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't help. I always say, like, in terms of the pandemic, I'm a bartender. That's my job. And we kind of got hit the hardest by it, I think, bars and restaurants. I don't think anybody, I mean, I'm sure somebody could argue with me on that, but my whole life, I tried doing the accounting thing. I tried a couple other jobs, but the one thing that always appealed, there's a lot of things that appeal to me about bartending. The women, the lifestyle, the late nights, it's a fun job. You get paid to host a party. How great is that? But one of the great things about bartending was that times are good, people drink. Times are bad, people drink. There's always going to be a job for a bartender. So this is the first time in my lifetime where there were 3 months there where I couldn't get a bartending gig somewhere. Mm. And that was weird. That was very strange to me. And when you think about the pandemic, would it have been the same without social media? Well, I think social media kind of saved our asses.
I agree.
In that we were able to interact with people. But on the minus side, I do feel like if this pandemic happened during the 90s, right? And we were both around and cognizant of the way the world worked in the 90s, and politics have always been divisive. Mm-hmm. I do think that there wouldn't have been as much blowback about the masks or the vaccines in the 90s because, well, why are you wearing a mask? Well, Walter Cronkite, Dan Rather says I should wear a mask. I saw it on news, okay. And there were always going to be people who are contrarians, who don't like being told what to do, which is something I understand. As I said, I don't like being told what to do, but the internet just makes it easier for people to truly fake it till they make it. Well, this guy has 1 million followers on YouTube, so he must know what he's talking about. That carries absolutely no weight. I have 32,000 Twitter followers, and I still have trouble making the rent every month. It doesn't mean anything, but I think that maybe that's a negative side of it. But I think there's more positive that comes out of social media in terms of the pandemic and everything like that. And I think it's just more, it's not even political anymore with the vaccine so much as it's people that don't like to be told what to do. And I've said countless times, about the bar, which we just kind of, just today, as of this recording, we're not checking vax cards. We're not enforcing masks anymore, which I'm excited about. I'll say that I'm happy about it. Although I'm going to miss the vax card a little bit because since the beginning of time, bartenders, we could check an ID to find out if you're 21 or not, right?
Yeah.
But since, the beginning of time, we always wanted, if we could have a sheet of paper that could tell me if somebody was foolish or not. How great would that be, right?
Yeah.
The Vax card is the closest thing I've ever had to that, because checking those Vax cards cleared out so much riffraff.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'd see a group coming in, some young bucks or something. I'm like, oh, these guys are trouble. They're already tuned up. And I'm like, all right, let me see your Vax cards, guys. And oh, you don't have them. I'm sorry, I can't serve you. But I'm glad that it's finally. I am glad that it feels like maybe we might have a relatively normal summer this year, right?
I'm hoping so. I mean, I work at a university, so it's like I'm excited to like be able to kind of have normal interactions with people there. Like students being able to come in and like sit through like an event and have food and not wear a mask and interact with each other.
I was talking to a teacher last night. The teachers come in for happy hour at my bar on Friday, and I was working the afternoon shift. And he was explaining that it's hard to interact with kids, particularly with kids, when you're wearing a mask. And I think, and you're on, as you said, you're on Twitter too much like I am. If you ever, like I to some people, my opinions on masking probably seems like it's right wing or libertarian or something like that, which I don't think it is. I kind of thought the mask became theater once we were getting vaccinated.
I agree, yeah.
But I understand why somebody would wear one. And if somebody asks me to wear one while I'm serving them, absolutely I will. I'm not going to be an asshole about it. But when they said, okay, with the bars, if you're eating or drinking, you don't have to wear a mask, but the bartender needs to wear a mask. I'm thinking, so I'm going to have a full, horseshoe bar, freaking 20 people in there, all not wearing masks, but I'm the one that's got to be uncomfortable. And get out of here. That's ridiculous. That's silly.
Yeah,
I'm vaccinated. We're all vaccinated.
Yeah,
but
it's safety theater.
But some people have just grown attached to the mask, and somebody wants to wear them. I guess I'm truly libertarian in that sense, where I'm like, do what you do. It's not affecting my day one way or the other. If that's what makes you feel comfortable, if that's what makes you happy, I'd rather have you do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of, I often get like accused of that myself. Like,
I'm sure.
Because, I've been around long enough where it's like, I've seen the panics before, right? Like, I've seen the satanic panic. I've seen and it feels like very much to me, like we're living through a combined satanic panic and Red Scare. Like it's coming from both sides. And I'm just
That's
like,
true. That's true.
It's a little much. I'm like,
there's people out there that just won't fucking get the vax because they don't like being told to do. And there's people out there that don't ever want it to end because they don't want to leave the house.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm somebody who likes leaving the house. My business, my money relies on people leaving the house. And when I see blue checkmark types running their mouths about it, I'm thinking, I did not have the option to work from home. And most people don't.
Yeah.
And I think that just shows a disconnect between, people always say it, and I'll say it again, maybe it'll get through to somebody. People want to try and say they want to divide people up by, race or gender or this, the other thing. It's always going to be about the rich versus the poor. And the rich know that they can get poor people to fight over dumb shit like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's there's I don't know if you're familiar with him. There's a guy named Andrew Heaton who has a podcast called The Political Orphanage.
I don't know this one.
It's pretty good. It's like, I think based off of what we're talking about, you might enjoy it. But his take was always like, I'm tired of being told to check my privilege by people who went to private middle school, private high school, and the best colleges in the world and work at the best media companies in the world.
Right. Yeah. At least have a self-awareness about you. I know who I am. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say I've had the hardest fucking life either. I grew up middle class. I still have my parents. They're very supportive of me. They've helped me out when I'm in pinch. They helped me out big time during the pandemic, because I was, even with the bars GoFundMe, which thank God for that, and even with the money from the government and unemployment, like I was still struggling. And it was weird there for a while, because even the people who own the bar were like, I don't know, how long can we hold on? How long can we be doing this? But it did force us to be very resourceful. And I think one of the favorite things we did was putting a drive-in theater in our parking lot.
I saw the photos of that. That looks amazing.
That wasn't even my idea. I always have to give credit. It was actually Jerry who runs our kitchen. And he'll never let me forget it. I always say, all right, fine. It was your idea. You made it, but I made it work. He goes, all right, that's fair. And shake hands. That's what we'll say from now on.
Yeah. There's a friend of mine owns a bar in Brooklyn called Beer Wax, which is like, it's a beer bar, but it's like vinyl themed. So like they have DJs coming in, like all sorts of like, sort of like soul and funk and hip hop DJs will come in and spin sets. But the whole back of the bar is just records.
Love it.
It's nothing but records.
I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal place. But they had a rule here that for bars to be open, they had to serve food.
Yes, I heard about that.
So he basically put a crock pot full of hot dogs on the counter and put like chips and salsa in like a bag. Well, and that was so with every beer you got that.
Well, did you ever see Bill Maher's Religulous?
Yes.
You remember the bit where he's talking to the Orthodox Jews and they can't do all these things after Sabbath, but they had created all these workarounds?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what the pandemic felt like to me.
Yeah.
Because like we couldn't have people indoors at our bars. So we set up we rented a bunch of shipping containers and set up tables and heaters out there. So you can't be inside here, but you can inside here. The inside. Yeah. And like and somebody was always coming in, you know, some ding dong anti-vax or anti-mask or saying, well, what's the difference? I'm like, it doesn't matter what I think. This is just how we're doing it right now, man. Like I didn't choose this, and it honestly probably did help. And I think another thing people don't want to remember about the pandemic was that we didn't shut things down because there was a virus, because there was a flu, because of COVID. We shut things down because the hospitals were overrun.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think people kind of forget that. They don't want to remember that because, I mean, I don't know the number. You can read numbers from a million different sources, but if like here in Chicago, if they're loosening up the mask and vax mandate, things I would like to think. I mean, not that I trust the government any more than anybody else, like, especially Chicago government. I would like to think that maybe things are working their way to getting a little bit better, but it's always going to be here. We're always going to have to deal with it. But if you get vaccinated, it won't be as bad. I know we're starting to turn into the Joe Rogan podcast here. I like
it's starting to feel like that. I mean, we might end up in trouble.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna get the Halloweenies canceled with my wild fucking opinions.
I mean, you know, you're.
I'm sorry, with my even tempered, well thought out opinions. Someone's gonna be upset by it.
Somebody's always gonna be upset. We just had a thing where we kind of just like as a goof, like we were talking, it was like one of those like loose wild episodes, and the conversation turned to Eminem as a rap producer.
Okay.
And he's really terrible
as a producer.
Like it's got no swing, it's got nothing. It's just like, you know, Casio keyboard, drums, and like a shitty sample.
That's so unfortunate. I would expect him to be, you know, having, you know, come under the tutelage of Dre, and
it's a shame.
But he just, you know what? Not everybody can do everything, right?
No, exactly. But we put it out as like it's a Patreon clip, right? Like something for our Patreon listeners. And 2 days later, I went to our page, and there was hundreds of Eminem fans mad at us.
Mad at you guys?
Just mad at us. It was amazing. I was like, wow.
Did your heart drop when you saw those comments? Like, oh no, what happened? Before you
a little bit, I was like, what's going on? And then I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. So, you know, we just basically spent like the next day doing battle until it ended, but they moved on to someone else.
I'm looking through my swarm app because I'm trying to find Brooklyn, because I want to run down a list of the bars that I went to. Because I was there to promote a screening at the Nighthawk.
Okay.
I was doing.
So were you in the Nighthawk in Williamsburg or in Park Slope?
In Williamsburg.
Okay.
So I did. I was hosting The Astrologer, which is this really cool cult film that was. It was unreleased. AGFA. You could rent a not a print, but you could rent a DCP from them, and you could show it. And I showed it here in Chicago. It did very well. And then a friend of mine, Kevin Mars, said, "Do you want to do it out here at the Nighthawk?" And I said, "Absolutely." Mm-hmm. And I hosted 2 nights there, Saturday and the Friday. The Friday is notable because I started my day at Brooklyn Brewing.
Okay.
And just worked my way down that strip on that walk back to the theater. Skinny Dennis, I hit George and Jack's Tap Room, Don Panchito. Like
I know Don Panchito.
I was on a run, and then I had to introduce the movie. And months later, I mean, I knew I was intoxicated. Months later, I saw a reviewer note the wildly intoxicated Mike Vanderbilt from Daily Grindhouse attempted to present a PowerPoint before the film. And I thought I had pissed off the owner, the guy who runs the theater, Max, but he just said to me after the Saturday presentation, because at that point, I was still hanging over from the previous night's events at midnight. And he goes, "You did much better tonight." I said, "Thank you very much. I appreciate that." But both nights sold out, so they couldn't have been too upset with me.
No, they certainly couldn't have. I mean, that's all they want, right?
Yeah, Brooklyn was fun though. I did my first shot of Montenegro in one of those places.
Oh wow. That's awesome. Well, if you ever come back out, I'll have to take you out to Beer Wax. I think you'd enjoy it.
Absolutely. I can't wait to get back out to New York. I was there in July, and I liked that kind of muggy heat coming off the ocean there. I like I said, I just had a great time in New York. I got to go to Manitoba's. I just kind of was on because I was on my own. Usually on vacations, I'm kind of hanging out with somebody, but the guy I was staying with, he was still working his day job, so I was on my own every night. So I was just going around and making new friends, whether I wanted to or not.
That's awesome. That's a good time. I mean, if I ever, one of my goals, if I ever come out to Chicago, is to come out to the bar just to experience.
Oh, you've got it. Yeah. We'll take good care of you down there. The only issue is, I think when, people see I'm from Chicago, I live in Chicago, but the bars, on that south end of the city, it's a kind of a hassle to get to if you're staying in Chicago. But if you're on vacation, you have expendable income. So just take things down. Yeah. And then you can crash on one of my numerous couches if you have to.
There we go.
It's going to turn into a night.
That's a good time. I'll bring my friend Jason Griff, who is from out in Chicago. Oh, he's one of my collaborators. He actually did. Are you familiar with the Fireside Bowl?
Absolutely. Played there once, but long after it was cool, because it was cool throughout the 90s. Then they turned into a real bowling alley. Then they started doing shows again. That's when we got in there.
Okay. Because he basically made a record called Fireside Chats. And it was, I guess formative years for him were being in going to punk shows there.
Oh, I just wasn't part of that scene, but all of my friends are. Like, I went to a couple shows at the Fireside. I remember seeing Teenage Frames there. I saw Moods for Moderns there, but I was never I wasn't like one of those, 5 people at that one Alkaline Trio show or something, because that's where they got their start. But I know so many people that it's definitely it is a notable place in Chicago rock and roll punk rock history.
Yeah. So he made a record basically, instead of like using like recycled samples, he just took samples from bands that he had seen there. And
I'm looking at it right now.
Made music at it. It's a real fun record.
I'm gonna have to check that out. Yeah, the Fireside was a spot.
Yeah, he's a big Chicago guy. He like manages Trader Joe's out there.
Which Trader? Oh yeah. I wonder if we've probably crossed paths. This is the world's biggest small town, as they call it.
Yeah, he's a real good dude. So I'll bring him out and about as well, because I know he's always, he's a family man. So if he gets a chance to go out, I'm sure he'll take it.
I know. I still live in that, single-ish lifestyle. I mean, I probably will forever. No kids or anything like that. But like, I'm 41, so a lot of my friends are on that tip. But luckily, when you're a bartender, you meet other degenerates.
Yeah.
Who can, like, tonight after I'm done here, I'm probably going to go up to Rock Island I have to, because my partner Ashley is tending bar, and we have to get our decorations up for Fat Tuesday.
Oh, nice.
And I know I'm not going to want to do it tomorrow afternoon. So I'm just going to go up there tonight, have a couple beers, have a couple tacos, and be done with it. I'm sharper at night anyway. I've never been a morning person, hence why I think I turned to one of the many reasons I turned to bartending as a career.
That's interesting. I used to be a night owl, like stay up till 4 a.m.
Musicians, man, we can't help it.
But it's switched on me, man. Like now I can't sleep past 8 o'clock.
They're raising a 10-year-old to do it to you, because
I guess so. Yeah, that will do it to you. But now she's older. Like she does it on her own. It's like I just wake up at that time. It's awful. I turned into my dad.
Do you just have the one kid?
Just the one, yeah. I mean, it was like, she'd probably hate me if I said this, but my wife and I went on vacation and came back with her. Oh, after a night of drinking and got home and was like,
a surprise.
I think we're having a baby.
A surprise, a happy surprise.
Yeah. So, and it was kind of kids, because it really lined up with like when my touring career ended. so to say. Like I did music like full time for like about 6 years, and my group broke up. The label I was on died. The scene that I was part of was like crashing to a halt.
Okay, this is the next step. This is what we got to do now, huh?
All things point to family.
Nice. Yeah. Well, but you enjoy it.
Yeah, it's good. You know,
I know plenty of people that went and did it, and I'm like, oh, you're having second thoughts. Huh? A little late for that.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. It's once you make the commitment, you got to go whole hog.
I agree with
it's
that.
It's like being in a band. You know?
Absolutely. That's for better or worse. I usually stuck with things till the end, or until I got kicked out. I played guitar in a couple other bands. I've gotten kicked out of one band, really more like asked to leave. They decided to do something that with other friends that they had been friends with for much longer. And then the other one, I was in this band, the Modern Day Rippers, this really cool party punk band, led by my man T. Ripper. And we got good shows, and the songs were good. And we just put out an album, like my first album that I ever put out on vinyl, like, and nice. I'm on it. But I grow a mustache once every couple of years.
Okay.
And the photo they used for the back cover of this is me with that mustache. So that mustache is going to live in infamy for the rest of my life. That's the photo that's on the one, true album that I have. It's not a bad mustache or anything, but it's really not. When people think of my look, they don't think of that mustache.
They don't think of the mustache.
But everything. It was just hard to get. It was hard to get 5 39-year-old people into a room with each other to practice during the week.
Oh yeah.
I work weekends. I can't stay up that late on a Tuesday. I got to get my kids to school, and I would love if they got back together. I mean, I could relearn them songs in a heartbeat. But I'll tell you what, I miss playing on a stage. I really do.
I've done it a couple times since ending my actual career of doing that, and it's a little nerve-wracking now. I'm not gonna lie. Like we don't do it that often. Yeah.
That's the thing now. Like, if I were to, like, the brewery, Blue Island Beer Company down the street from our bar, they do an open mic every Thursday, and I'm always tempted to go over there, but I would have to sit and actually practice. Even if I was doing original songs, I would have to sit and relearn how embarrassing is it when you forget the lyrics to your own fucking song?
It's really, the one good thing about rap music is you can freestyle. Yeah. But I had always been in groups where there was myself and another rapper, and it was like
somebody could cover up, but
it was also like my best friend, right? So like when that group ended, I was like, I don't want to just be up here by myself anymore. It was more fun when it was two of us.
Well, yeah, I mean, going and doing the solo shows, I haven't really written a new song in 10 or 15 years probably, and I'm like, why am I up here? I'm up here singing about, just going through the motions, like no emotion, no feeling, like singing about, I couldn't even tell you what girl any of these songs were about, or if they were really about anybody at all. And I'm up here I'm singing these songs that a 25-year-old wrote at 41 years old, but I also just don't have that. I haven't had that inspiration to sit down and write anything. And playing solo acoustic is fine, but I'm not a great guitar player. I'm not a great singer. I am a good frontman. I like having a racket behind me. I like having, guitars and horns and keyboards. I like being up there it's not a group, it's a gang.
Yeah.
And it's you against the world that night, and you get to be the coolest people in the room for 45 minutes. So act like it.
It's the best, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah. I miss it.
Yeah, there's no other high in the world like it.
And I got to the point where I didn't even drink before a show because I realized that nobody does anything better drunk.
No, that's for damn sure.
It took me a long time to get to that point, because you always think, I'll have a couple to loosen up, and you're never any better because your amp starts fucking up, and you're like, if you're drunk, you're standing, you're just having a fit. You don't know why. If you're sober, you can like look through the daisy chain and say, oh, I've still got it on standby, which is a thing that has happened to me. Like, why is there no sound coming out? Like,
so let me ask 2 more questions, and I'll let you go, because there's beers and Fat Tuesday decorations and tacos.
Oh yeah, no, I got work. I'm always working.
Yeah.
I am the laziest, busiest man you would ever want to meet.
It's the best way to be busy, I think.
Yeah. I was whining about all this work I have to do and appearing on all these podcasts, doing this promo tour for the Halloweenies and all that. And if I wasn't doing anything, I'd be miserable. And if I'm too busy, I'm miserable. So I'd rather just be doing stuff. At least I feel like I'm working towards something.
Yeah. At least you don't feel the guilt of not doing things.
Oh man. And being mad at yourself because, somebody else beat you to the punch in that article on that podcast that you had the idea for, but you didn't sit down and do it.
Yeah, no, that's really it right there. Right. So I want to hear about with the upcoming season. Like I'm super excited about this season.
So, every year we get together and we have the round robin and we throw out the different franchises, but we always try. So with Halloweenies, we always try to tie it into something that's going on that year, something that we can lead up to, something that we can build up to. And we've been very lucky lately because the first season they were building up to Halloween 2018. So they did the Halloween. Elm Street just seemed like the next logical step because it's the best, it's the best franchise, as I've said. And then by Friday the 13th, that's the next logical step. But we weren't really building up to anything. So we were very lucky this year when we get a fifth Scream coming out. So we're able to do that season. And that was an interesting season because there's only 4 movies. So we got to fill in the gaps with all those Randy recommendations, which were some of my favorite episodes we got to do, where we got to do a lot of one-off horror movies that maybe never got sequels, like House on Sorority Row, which is great. Or, The Howling got sequels, but that's another series that's better than you expect it to be.
Really?
There are a couple gems. 2, 3, 5, 6 are actually very good. They're 3 stars from Mike Vanderbilt. I would recommend the Howling series. The Amityville series is not as bad as you think it is either, but the bad ones are really bad, I suppose. So we won't be doing a whole season on our nose until Halloween season 25, Halloweenies season 25. So this year we had to think, what were we going to do? Texas Chainsaw Massacre did come up because there was a new movie coming out, but nobody was ready to. Sometimes when we look at these franchises, particularly like something like the Hellraiser franchise, remember the scene in Pee-wee's Big Adventure when the pet store is on fire?
Yeah.
And he's saving all the animals, but he keeps going past the big tub of snakes and going like, ugh, gross, because he doesn't want to grab them. But eventually, it's the last ones that he grabs. That's what Hellraiser is like. It's like,
I can see that.
Not yet. So it's a rough one. With Evil Dead Rise coming out, this year, we thought it'd be perfect to get into the Evil Dead series. And again, it's kind of tricky. How are we going to fill up this season? Because there's only 3 movies, or actually, take it back. There's 4, including the remake. But there's also we have the TV show, which we rarely cover the TV shows because we've never covered Friday the 13th series or Nightmare on Elm Street or Freddy's Nightmares. But we don't know how we're going to do it, but we are going to cover the Ash versus Evil Dead, and we're going to cover the video games as well.
Awesome.
Which I won't be on those episodes. I grew out of video games, and even when that Star Wars Battlefront came out, because it just looked like the coolest thing in the world, I tried to sit down and play it, and I was out of my element. It was truly, I was like a little kid. Let me just watch you play. Let me just watch.
Yeah.
So
I didn't even know there was Evil Dead video games.
They're very popular too. And they look cool. Again, these are things that look cool, but I said, I have enough time wasters and vices in my life.
Yeah.
Between drink, drugs, wine, women, song, movies, music. I don't need another one. So leave the video games for everybody else. But yeah, we're going to do the Evil Dead film. So we're starting with the first one, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, which I think if you just look at that, like right now, that is a perfect trilogy. Of movies. There's not a bad one in a bunch. Like it's kind of reminds me of like the Indiana Jones series. When you look at those first 3, like everybody has their favorite, but there isn't a bad one.
No, there's nothing.
Like something has to rank towards the bottom for you. But I think that's going to be interesting to see where everybody lands on the Evil Dead series. Because I think everybody has very strong feelings about each one of them, and I'm looking forward to it because the Evil Dead series is. Like I didn't grow up with those necessarily because I got into those right before Army of Darkness came out. So I was like 12. I read about them in Fangoria. I read about Army of Darkness coming out in Fangoria, and I said, "Man, I've seen this box art. I've seen clips from this. I need to check these movies out." And it was love at first sight. Me and my friends, 12 years old, we watched that first Evil Dead, and even as people who had been watching horror movies most of our adolescence, we'd never seen anything quite like that. From a hero that you can kind of relate to. You kind of can see yourself in Ash a little bit because he's kind of a dope. and just that low budget, low red special effects, and that idea that when you read about it, there's this great Cinefantastique issue about Evil Dead 3 Army of Darkness. It says Evil Dead 3 on the cover, that I'm using a lot for resources on this. It's this idea of these guys. It's just a bunch of friends from college who made a movie and made good on it. And I think that's a lot. I think that actually resonates with a lot of the Halloweenies, because I think we kind of feel like that about our show this year, because I don't think anybody saw. I mean, with our Patreon, we have a little bit of money come in it. As somebody who was starting a podcast 6 years ago, drinking with his friends in the kitchen, I never thought I'd be getting a check for talking about horror movies one day, right?
Yeah,
so
that's amazing, right?
We're kind of living that Sam Raimi dream a little bit. Like maybe they'll get us onto maybe we'll do a Marvel podcast next. I don't know.
Please don't.
That'll be season 26.
There you go. Did you ever read the Evil Dead book? It was like a book about the making of the Evil Dead.
I had it, and I just reordered it off of Abe Books, which I'll give a plug for them, because if you're ever looking for used books, like the Evil Dead Companion was going for like $72 on Amazon used, and I got it on Abe Books for like $12.
Nice.
Abe Books is, if you're looking for old Playboys, old Leg Show magazines, or old books about movies, Abe Books is the place to be seen. So yes, I actually just started rereading that again in preparation, because we're recording our first episode this week, and I'm sure, as anybody who listens to the Halloweenies knows, it's going to be a long one.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a deep dive, which is one of the terms that we hate in call out culture, but
it's the only way to describe it. We laugh though when, another thing that was really cool for us, seeing how many hours people spent listening to us during the pandemic when they do their Spotify rankings. But the joke was like, you spent, what do I say? You spent 3,000 hours with the Halloweenies. Yeah, but you only listened to 2 episodes.
There you go. That's right on brand. So my last question, what's the deal with Malort?
Here we go. I knew we had to get to it eventually. So Malort is how do I want to describe it? It was originally distilled in Chicago. Let me pull up my field guide to Malort, because I have a field guide on my Medium account.
Okay.
That I think, so what I started doing with Malort was I started tracking it in different cities, because it's rare that you find it. Mm-hmm. You can find it at the Nighthawk Cinema in Williamsburg. They have it tucked away in a cabinet towards the back. And it's not the official Malort, it's the knockoff Malort, but they do have it. So it's a Chicago liqueur. It was originally distilled in Chicago, and it's very bitter, it's very floral, and right around like 2007, it had a moment where it became a very hip thing to drink. It kind of coincided with IPA culture, because it was bitter and grapefruit, and it's very distinct. And some people say it's bad, but I think I have a theory. All shots are bad.
Yeah.
Whatever you're shooting, it's bad unless you're sipping it. You want to enjoy it, sip it. So all shots are bad. So why not as a bartenders like Malort, because it's relatively low proof. So you can do it all fucking night and still count your drawer at the end of the shift because you're not drunk. And it also works in the sense that when you get that group of people that come in who want a fun shot, maybe they're being a pain in the ass, maybe they're a little tuned up, you pour up this Malort for them, you've either made a friend or an enemy. It's kind of like the term jagoff, which I always say is the aloha of Chicago, because it can mean friend or it can mean foe.
Okay.
And it's a very Chicago thing that it's slowly expanding out. Like one day it's still sort of cool. I think it's kind of shifted whether it's cool or not for the past couple of years. But the label reads, it has the aroma and full-bodied flavor of an unusual botanical. Like I said, it's very bitter. Are you familiar with Fernet or Chinar?
No, I'm not.
Those are other liqueurs that are kind of in the family. For some reason, it's just a bartender thing too.
Okay.
And it's a bartender thing. It's a Chicago thing. And I love how I've become associated with it for better or worse.
Well, I like it. I do like it.
I do like it because it's my shot of choice Actually, I can't today. My shot of choice is mezcal. I love mezcal. Mezcal is my favorite liquor. I went through a whiskey phase like everybody else, and I just kind of, just too much for me sometimes. Not that mezcal is any better, but Malort is just, it's easy to do. It's easy and it's hard. It's everything. It's gross and it's disgusting and it's fun and it's cool. It's everything Chicago is.
Okay.
And
I was going to order it, and then I spoke to the aforementioned Jason Griffin. He was like, I don't know if you want to do that.
Oh, no. See, that's just it. Anytime I give it to somebody who, like, I have a lot of people, like, I've become kind of ambassador to the Joe Bob Briggs Mutant Fam ambassador. So whenever I have, somebody come in from out of town, I have to take them to the usual, my Chicago haunts in the surrounding suburbs, and I get to do a shot of Malort with me. And they always say the same thing. That wasn't that bad. There's a lot of performance, I think, when people,
sure, yeah,
when people do the shot of Malort these days. And what was I gonna say? It's just not as bad. It's not as bad as you think it is.
Okay. Well, I definitely will have to do it when I'm out in Chicago.
I
still may order a bottle.
Here's a good story though. I was in Nashville. I want to tell you. I'm in Nashville, and we wind up at this place called Dino's, which is the best place for a late night burger in Nashville. Pro tip. But I walk in and I was in Nashville for 2 days and I couldn't find Malort, and there it was.
Wow.
Because it's a surface industry hangout. So there was a row. It was like Fernet, Chinar, Malort, like all your favorite aperitivos, digestives. And I ordered a shot, and the guy sitting at the counter at the bar says, I've never had that before. I said, well, tonight's the night. Bought him his shot, Nashville resident, and did them together, and words out of his mouth. Well, that wasn't that bad. And I think that sums up Malort. It wasn't that bad.
That's a perfect way to sum it up. My one night in Nashville was very different than that. But
where did you play down there?
I did, yeah. So we played a show, and it was one of those nightmare tours where every venue was like 3 people. Ugh. And it was just like you're getting your ass handed to you every night.
And like we talked about this the other night at our trivia night that I do with my friend Rafael Martinez. We do a trivia night at Fastest in Chicago, and only 5 people showed up. But he's an old punk rock dude too, and we knew we've got to put on the show.
Oh yeah,
because it's not their fault nobody showed up, but they're here. No. So you gotta leave it all out on the ice, right?
Yeah, you gotta. So we got to Nashville. Never been to Nashville before, and there's 250 kids at the show. And it was like, holy shit, what the hell happened? So, we do the show, and a couple nights before we were playing Austin, Texas, and we had some friends in Austin. And
Austin's another cool town. I like
a very cool town. We wanted to do mushrooms. So our friend got us a Hershey's bar, like, the chocolate bar, where it's like you're supposed to basically do like one rectangle. Right. And that's a dose.
That's my story with edibles. Anytime I fuck around with them, this ain't working, so I do another one.
Yeah. So we did, when we were in Austin, like 4 of us did it, and so there was like 12 of them. We ate 4 of them, so there were still 8 left. We do the Nashville show. We're like, holy shit, this was amazing. One of the other artists puts us up in her house, and me and my buddy Ian, who's the other dude in my group at the time, we're like, let's finish all of them. We decided we're going to have four squares each.
Ah, Jesus. Why do you hate yourselves?
I don't know. It was like one of those things, like, let's see how far we could push this. It was like that stage of touring. Let's see how far we could push this. So we did it, and starts kicking in, and I'm like, I got to like go sit down for a second. So I mistakenly went to MySpace to see how people enjoyed the show. And I pull up MySpace, and one of the reviews of the show was, didn't that place close a year ago? So in my head, I flashed, for some reason, I thought of like the scene in Tales from the Hood. Have you ever seen that movie?
One of my absolute favorites. And I'm one of the few people that gave a good review to the second one.
I've never seen the second one. The first one's amazing. And Clarence Witherspoon is one of the greats.
I'm relatively friendly with one of the directors, Darren Scott.
Okay.
When I was at Fantasia for the premiere, we just got to be friendly, and he's just a big old horror dork. So he real chatty.
That's
a real
amazing.
Nice guy.
So anyway, I go to the ending of that movie, and I'm like, holy shit, we died. on our way here. Like something happened and we died.
Yes, the shit.
So I come out.
You're gonna get the shit.
Yeah. So I come outside of like the room that I was in, and the woman that put us up, she was like the soul singer, and she's like in this flowing gown.
This is in Nashville.
In Nashville, this flowing gown. She has like her hair's out. She's standing in front of a light. Looks like she has like a halo behind her head. And her friend is dressed in like all red with like a black leather jacket. And he's pissed because he has a thing for her. But my other buddy on the road, she has a thing for him. So man. He's pissed and salty. And like they're both standing there looking at me.
Trouble all around.
And I'm just like, they're battling for my soul. It's an angel and a demon battling for my soul. So I was like, I'm out. I like ran out the front door and found my friend who was like just sitting on the front lawn looking at the clouds, like tripping his balls off. And I made a song about it called Heaven and Hell in Nashville. I'll send it over.
Well, I need to check out your music. I was a big fan of Nashville. Nashville, well, you said there were 250 kids at the show, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's fine because Nashville is truly, when people talk about it being a great music town, like it's no joke. One of my favorite experiences down there, we were staying at the Dive Motel, which is in East Nashville, which is like the hip side of Nashville now. Mm-hmm. We asked the bartender, that's the trick, right? Asked the bartender, where's a cool spot to go?
Yeah.
And he says, you got to go to the VFW hall on Tuesday. They open it to public and a band plays. And we go there. The place is fucking packed on a Tuesday night for this band called the Cowpokes, who became like my favorite band. And they were doing old timey country, like honky tonk. And everybody, as the dance floor was full of young people, old people, locals, just two-stepping and dancing and having a good time. And as someone who has played in rock and roll bands and hosted events and stuff, I know how hard it is to get somebody out midweek.
Yeah.
And the fact that this place was packed, it just like, it warmed my heart as somebody who does enjoy live music, that maybe in Chicago it ain't what it used to be, but it still lives on down in Nashville, because we went and saw the band the next night at Robert's Western World, the Cowpokes, and all the same crowd came out to see him again. Like they had
that's awesome.
Groupies. And the Monday night we went to a Motown dance party at a bar, and it was filled with 20-something-year-olds dancing to Martha and the Vandellas.
Wow, that's amazing.
But I'm like, not like 5 people, like fucking packed. And I was like, this town is, I'd probably hate it if I lived down there. You know, isn't that the way? You know, I'm talking about how I'm talking about how great New York is. You're like, yeah, it's really nice. It's fine. I say I want to live in Los Angeles. I want to live in 1977 Los Angeles. I don't want to live in 2022 Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's always era specific, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I'm actually heading out there in like 2 weeks, just to like get out of town for a little bit.
Or to LA?
First time there. Yeah, it'll be my first time there since like 2007. So it'll be interesting.
We went out there for my birthday, my 41st birthday, since my 40th was during, you know, the pandemic. We flew out there to go see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood at the New Bev.
Oh wow!
But the theater had just reopened, and we did the whole thing. We went to Musso and Frank's. We went to El Coyote. We did the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood tour. We made it everywhere except Casa Vega. Truly had a great time. Like it was. I can't wait to get back out there.
I love that city. It's a fun time.
So do I.
Yeah. Have you done Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles yet?
Yes, I have. Big fan. Big fan.
I've been promising my daughter we're gonna try to go there.
Oh, she'll love it.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get there for her. So we'll see how that goes. But
yeah.
This has been an absolute pleasure.
Dude, this was so much fun. It's just hanging out, chit-chatting. It's like,
man, I'm glad we got to do it.
Yeah, this was the last. I'm glad you got in touch with me. I'm glad I came on. This was great. Thank you for letting me pimp the show. I do appreciate that too.
Of course. I mean, thank you for the many hours of entertainment that the show has provided.
You know, it really does. It means a lot to me when people say that, because, you know, there's countless podcasts out there, and there's more than enough podcasts on horror movies. So the fact that people choose ours just means everything to me.
It's a great feeling, isn't it? So when does the first episode of the next season come out?
It'll be coming out later this month. We're recording it this week, so I imagine sometime here. You know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go on my phone and I'm going to actually find the schedule, because as I'm still the new guy on Halloweenies, I kind of take advantage of that sometimes, where I don't always know everything that's going on.
It's one of the new guy perks, though.
I think so, and I've been a new guy for 2 seasons, and I'm going to keep leaning into this.
I think you should. I think you've earned it.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. Let me see if I can find the schedule, because I don't think it's been. I'm looking through Twitter at first. I don't think Mike actually maybe posted it yet. My Rothman's the main, like Justin's the quintessential host, and Rothman's like the man behind the scenes. He's the guy, like he does all the stuff that gets this show, rocking and rolling and gets it into people's ears. That's all Rothman. And I always say Dan Caffrey is the heart of the podcast. And and Mac is another one who behind the scenes, like he's the one who makes sure we show up for recordings, because he puts awesome. It all. He's the one who schedules it all. So the Evil Dead is going to drop on March 21st.
Excellent.
And we also have a commentary on Cabin Fever. We're going to have an episode about the 10 best bars in horror. Of course, I'll be on that one. And we're going to do a deep dive into The Changeling.
Excellent. That's awesome. I actually rewatched My Bloody Valentine because of you guys. I hadn't seen it.
That was a fun episode.
Decades. It's
a good movie.
Great movie. It's so good.
That's one of the best movies of that first wave of slashers, because we just covered The Prowler, which should be dropping today or tomorrow. And The Prowler is fine. Like, The Prowler is worth watching, if only because you got Joe Zito, who goes on to do Friday the 13th, the final chapter. You have terrific special effects from Tom Savini. He considers it his best work. But the movie itself just doesn't move the way My Bloody Valentine does. I really dig that one. That's one of my favorites of that era.
Yeah, great likable cast, too, through the whole thing.
Absolutely. Hollis. Nice guy, Hollis.
Oh, he's the best. He's the absolute best. So thank you again so much, and call out cultists. Please be sure to check out the Halloweenies podcast if you're a horror fan.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Mike Vanderbilt. I'm easy to find. Find me on Instagram at MA Vanderbilt. Follow me, I'll follow you.
There you go. I'll put the links in the show information as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
That's the episode, man. Thank you to Mike for joining us, and thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it's a little bit different than what we normally do, but I think it was still pretty fun. If you did like the conversation, be sure to check out the Halloweenies Podcast, which is a weekly podcast. I think the new season starts around the end of the month. Evil Dead, classic horror movie, so if you like horror, it's really worth getting into. And, if you want more of Mike's musings, you can follow him at Mike Vanderbilt on Twitter. So all one word, Mike Vanderbilt. So peace out.